Iconic civil rights leader and president of the New York chapter of the NAACP, Dr. Hazel Dukes, has died. Dukes stood for decades beside some of the most powerful politicians and activists in the country. Kristie Keleshian has a look back at the trailblazing legend.
Dr. Hazel Dukes was better known as Queen Mother, or Ma Dukes, to advocates who followed in the path of advocacy she blazed in her more than 7 decades in civil rights activism, serving as president of the NAACP New York State Conference. She died on Saturday morning surrounded by family. Her son Ronald Dukes writing in a statement, quote, "Mom was a committed civil rights leader in New York City and the nation and worked tirelessly on the front lines almost to the end." Reverend Al Sharpton, founder and president of the National Action Network, of which she was an active member, says he knew her for 55 years and last spoke with her on Thursday.
She was weak and somewhat conclusive that her work was done. We will never be able to have another Hazel Dukes, but thank God we knew the one we did have.
Reverend Sharpton says Dukes would often come here to the National Action Network's House of Justice, sometimes even unannounced.
She came here a couple of months ago. She had a walker, and I never saw her in a walker. And she had a nurse with her. There'll always be a missing seat for Hazel Dukes.
An outpouring of tributes from lawmakers, activists, and other public figures throughout the day Saturday, including from Mayor Adams, saying, quote, "New York City has lost a giant, but heaven has gained a warrior." One of the last times we saw Dukes was in September of last year, when she shouted down hecklers while announcing her support for Mayor Adams through his indictment on federal corruption charges.
Would you be quiet? Would you shut up? He's going to have his day in court, and we're going to stand by him.
She was one of few women to serve as national president of the NAACP and presided over its New York conference starting in 1977. The organization saying, quote, "Despite her many titles and distinctions, she often described herself simply as a servant of the people." Flags are ordered to be flown at half-staff across the city, and similar orders are in place in Nassau County. Hempstead Mayor Waylon Hobbs.
She has fought hard. Now she gets her rest, but she'll never be forgotten in our community or in our nation.
She was born in Montgomery, Alabama, the birthplace of the civil rights movement, then moved to Roslyn in North Hempstead, Long Island in 1956, where she advocated for housing equity and became the first black woman to work for the Nassau County Attorney's Office.
My dad was a really civil rights advocate without knowing it. He was always talking about things that was not right.
She served as national president of the NAACP in 1989, but lost re-election in the 90s after pleading guilty to embezzling money from the bank account of a woman who suffered from leukemia, Velma McLaughlin, who had given Dukes power of attorney. Dukes valiantly defended herself.
I'm still worthy of all the things that I've done and I am doing.
She was then removed from the NAACP's National Board of Directors, but in 1999 became president of the NAACP's New York State Conference. Activists like Jamie Bland with the National Action Network say it's almost providential that Dr. Dukes died on the first day of Women's History Month.
She was NAACP, and she will always be here in the spirit.
Dukes' family says funeral service plans are soon to be announced. In Harlem, Kristie Keleshian, CBS News, New York.
Dr. Dukes sat down with me last summer for what would end up being one of the final on-camera interviews of her life. I was struck by her humility, her zest for life, and of course that megawatt smile. She had just helped Kamala Harris secure the Democratic nomination for president. And while Harris did not win in November, Dukes told me she still believes the future is female.
Do we underestimate the power of women, specifically women of color, at moments like this in history?
Absolutely. We've never had a lot of money. That was not what made us resilient. It was our faith. It was our belief that made us resilient.
As she showed me around her home filled with photographs and memories of all the lives she impacted in politics, religion, and the civil rights movement, Dr. Dukes said she hoped her legacy would live on long after she did. And tonight we're seeing just the beginning of that playing out. We have much more on the life and legacy of Dr. Hazel Dukes on our website, cbsnewyork.com.